Okay, let's get started. We are diving deep into, well, the essential language of living, home and accommodation.
Mhm.
This whole deep dive is built around a pretty rigorous structure, actually. We've got this stack of specific questions and, honestly, a huge glossary.
Yeah, it's quite comprehensive.
Our goal here is really to take all that information and give you, the listener, a kind of shortcut to fluency. So you can discuss everything from, say, property finance to architecture with, genuine depth.
Exactly. What we're looking at is a framework that's sort of designed to push you beyond just basic chat about houses.
Right.
If you can get your head around the terminology and the kind of philosophical tensions hidden in these source questions, you immediately lift your conversation. It's way beyond just saying, oh, I like big houses.
Yeah, much more nuanced.
We're pulling out the specific vocabulary you need, talking about building types, the financial side, lifestyle trade-offs, all that stuff.
And we're definitely going to focus on those big divides, the interesting ones. That constant tension between, like, high-density city life and sprawling countryside living.
Uh.
And the practical clash, too. Budget versus what looks good.
Yeah. Finance versus aesthetics, it's classic.
Let's see how quickly we can get you really well informed on all this. Okay, so let's start with maybe the most basic difference.
Yeah.
Density. If you just look at the buildings themselves, the architecture, what really separates urban from rural housing?
Well, fundamentally, it's the need to build up, not out. Simple as that, really.
Right. Vertical versus horizontal?
Exactly. In the city, you're almost automatically dealing with things like apartment blocks or high-rise buildings. Sometimes people call them tower blocks.
Okay.
And the specific terminology, it helps define your relationship to the place. So if you're just renting, it's usually a flat or an apartment.
But then the moment ownership gets involved, the language changes, doesn't it? Especially thinking about, say, North America.
Yeah, this is where it gets interesting. If you actually own your unit, but you're sharing common areas, and crucially, the financial responsibility for upkeep.
Okay, like the roof, the hallways.
Precisely. Then you call it a condominium, or just condo for short. That distinction ownership plus that shared liability, that's key. It sets it apart from just renting a flat.
Makes sense.
And of course, you've still got the ultimate status symbol, vertically speaking.
Right.
The penthouse, always right at the top.
Right. Now let's contrast that with the countryside, where spreading out is, well, kind of the default setting.
Yeah, we immediately shift gears to low-density words. Often, what people want is a detached house, meaning it stands completely alone.
No shared walls.
Correct. If you share just one wall with a neighbor, then it's a semi-detached house.
Okay.
If you're joined up on both sides, like in a line, that becomes a terraced house, or sometimes called a row house.
Got it.
And then you get these specific types of structures, maybe prized for being easy to live in or just charming, like the bungalow, which is all on one floor,
Right. No stairs inside, usually.
or the small, often quite old cottage. A very characteristic look.
So that structural difference, building up versus spreading out, it obviously dictates the lifestyle too. The question then is, what's the trade-off? What are you giving up or gaining when you move between density and sprawl?
Well, the city experience is really driven by proximity, isn't it?
Yeah, convenience.
You want to be downtown or maybe within walking distance of shops, work, entertainment. The minute you move on the outskirts, you're probably sacrificing some of that convenience.
It's usually for more space, right?
Likely, yeah. Trading commute time for square footage, that kind of thing.
But thinking about that sprawl in the country, don't you sometimes lose that immediate sort of built-in community feel you might get just by walking past the same neighbors every day in a city block?
It's just a different kind of community, I think. The country often offers what people call a close-knit community.
Okay.
Neighbors might be linked more by, say, necessity or local history, rather than just happening to live near the same coffee shop.
Right, shared experience over shared postcode sometimes.
And the focus shifts massively onto the land itself. You start talking about your garden, your lawn, the backyard, maybe maintaining a hedge or putting up a fence.
Practical thing.
Yeah, or even having a greenhouse. The building and the natural environment become really, really intertwined.
And that tension convenience versus that feeling of having a place of your own, something spacious that seems to drive pretty much every housing decision people make.
It really does. It's fundamental.
Okay, moving on from the feel and the look to the, well, the absolute nuts and bolts. Let's talk about the practical side of high-density living. What sort of vocabulary do we need when we're discussing safety or just quality of life in these tight urban spaces?
Well, when you stack people vertically, system reliability and safety become absolutely critical.
Yeah, you'd hope so.
So you need the terms for protective measures.
Hmm.
Things like security systems, fire alarms, maybe even a sprinkler system.
Yeah.
But honestly, often the biggest day-to-day quality of life factor is just basic maintenance and function.
Like, nothing teaches you the value of good soundproofing like living next door to someone learning the drums, right?
Oh, absolutely. Soundproofing is huge. So is good insulation, against heat and cold. And reliable ventilation to keep the air moving and fresh.
Essential stuff.
And structurally, I mean, if you're in a proper high-rise, you just can't function without a working elevator. Or lift, depending on where you are.
True.
These are sort of the non-negotiable terms that really define whether an apartment block is actually habitable day to day.
Okay. Now, let's tackle maybe the biggest practical hurdle for many. The money. Property. Why is that?
Simply put,
Yeah.
because location dictates cost and future opportunity.
Right.
If you want to move beyond just renting, you somehow have to find a way to get on the property ladder. And this is where very specific financial language becomes, well, unavoidable.
The first big barrier usually being that massive upfront payment.
That's the deposit, exactly. But the actual purchase, that nearly always requires a mortgage. That's the loan you take out to cover the cost.
And you have to be specific, right? You take out a mortgage.
Yes, that's the standard phrase. And for lots of buyers, particularly younger people, being a first-time buyer can be important.
Yeah.
Give them access to certain schemes or slightly better terms.
Okay. And thinking globally, for our listeners everywhere, we should probably note that the ongoing costs, the running costs, they vary wildly depending on where you live. You have specific terms like council tax in the UK.
Precisely. That's the local property tax that funds public services, rubbish collection, schools, roads, that sort of thing.
You need to know that local term.
You absolutely do if you're discussing the real cost of living somewhere. And then, of course, there's the whole rental market. If you're not buying, you're dealing with a landlord or landlady.
And you are the tenant.
Correct. And the legal agreement binding you both is the lease.
Okay. And if things go wrong in that relationship?
Then the landlord might have grounds to evict the tenant. It's a formal legal process.
And the person or company often in the middle of all these buying, selling, and renting transactions.
That would be the estate agent or, in North America typically, the real estate agent. They're the intermediaries.
Bridge, kind of.
Yeah, they bridge that gap between the money, the legal documents, and the actual physical property. Knowing these terms, it defines the whole legal and economic reality of your housing situation.
Right. So once you've actually got the place, the money questions don't just stop there, do they? Is it going to be expensive to decorate or maybe do up a property? We need that language for maintenance and improvement.
Yeah, this is where you define the scale of work. If you're just changing how it looks, maybe you just redecorate. Perhaps give it a lick of paint or decide to paper the walls.
That sounds like the lighter, cheaper option.
Usually, yes. That's generally the lower budget end.
But what if you're planning something major, like knocking down walls, moving plumbing around?
Then you're talking about a full renovation.
Yeah.
And the costs jump, often exponentially.
Right.
This is also where the starting condition really matters.
Yeah.
Is the place being sold fully furnished or completely unfurnished? Does it already have expensive features, like a brand new fitted kitchen, or maybe that highly desirable open-plan kitchen?
All those existing bits determine your budget, right?
Absolutely. They determine your project budget up front. And that's not even mentioning the ongoing costs like utilities, gas, electric, water. Being really specific with your vocabulary here defines your financial commitment, both now and down the line.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about the more personal side of housing, those design choices, the touches that make a building feel like a home. What's the role of aesthetics? Maybe using plants as an example.
Oh, plants are a great example, actually. They're often used to create a specific atmosphere, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe making a small space feel more cozy, or helping achieve that clean, modern look that often relies heavily on lots of natural light. When people talk about turning a house or flat into their dream home, they're usually talking about achieving a particular mood or feeling.
And often that mood, or even just the functionality, is shaped by the specific rooms we create. We need the words for the rooms that go beyond just the basic kitchen and bedroom, right?
Absolutely. These specialized rooms often signal lifestyle choices, hobbies, wealth, or even professional needs.
Like a home office.
Exactly. With remote work booming, having a dedicated study has become almost essential for many. Or if you're in an older property, you might have a pantry or a larder for food storage.
Practical spaces.
Yeah, or utility room specifically for laundry, maybe muddy boots, that kind of thing. Keeps the mess contained.
I also find those spaces that bridge the inside and the outside really interesting. They seem to say a lot about how people actually use their property.
They really do.
Yeah.
In a high-density place like an apartment block, a balcony can be absolutely critical for getting some private outdoor
A
access.
bit of fresh air.
Yeah. Whereas in a detached house, you're more likely to have a patio or maybe a terrace that connects the main living area straight out to the garden.
Seamless connection?
Kind of. And speaking of connections, we shouldn't forget those uh, sometimes hidden or transitional parts of the structure itself, like the hallway that connects the rooms.
Underneath.
Right, the basement, or maybe an older cellar, or up above the attic or loft space. Knowing these specific terms lets you describe pretty much every square inch of the property you're talking about.
Okay, that makes sense. And we also need the words for how things change over time, don't we? Life happens, families grow, maybe kids leave home.
Yes, absolutely. The verbs of the property life cycle, you could call them. They're vital. When you're looking for a place, you're house hunting.
Right.
When you finally move in and want to celebrate, you might throw a housewarming party.
A classic.
Then, as life changes, maybe you need to downsize when you retire. Or if your family's growing and you need more space, you might hire a builder to add an extension.
Expanding outwards or upwards?
Exactly. This whole linguistic toolkit, it gives you the power to describe not just the physical house, but the whole journey of living within it over time. Hashtag outro K.
So, wrapping this up, what does all this mean for you, the listener? Our deep dive into these, well, quite structured sources seems to confirm that just mastering the vocabulary, from a bungalow or a cottage right through to a mortgage and a lease, that's really only half the story.
Yeah, that's right. The other half is getting to grips with the conceptual conflicts, the trade-offs.
Okay.
You now know that to talk about accommodation properly, you have to juggle multiple things at once. You weigh up aesthetic desires against financial reality.
Budgets.
Yeah. And structural necessities like the insulation or soundproofing we mentioned against how convenient the location is. You're basically prepared not just to define the terms, but to compare and contrast them effectively.
Which brings us, I think, to the final, maybe the most crucial takeaway from all this. How do you take this information, this content, and actually sound well informed when you're talking about it?
It comes down to structure and anticipation, I think. Don't just list the terms you know. Use them to show you're thinking conditionally, thinking about the implications.
Okay, give us an example.
Well, if someone tells you they're looking for, say, a detached house out in the countryside, don't just nod and agree. Immediately ask the kind of follow-up question that these sources prepare you for.
Such as?
Something like, okay, but what are you realistically prepared to pay in council tax out there? Or how are you budgeting for the potential renovation costs that often come with older country homes?
Ah, right, connecting the dots.
Exactly. Real knowledge lets you anticipate the logical next step in the conversation. It lets you potentially lead the discussion yourself. And that's the difference between just memorizing a glossary and genuinely being well-informed on a topic like this.